Kansas Planning Commission for the meeting May 25th, 2023. Mr. Rickard, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Fellers.
Here.
Commissioner Fischetti.
Here.
Commissioner Hackler.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Leeson.
Here.
Commissioner Letts.
Here.
Commissioner Long is absent. Commissioner Nichols.
Here.
Commissioner Watson.
Here.
We have a quorum. I'd like to welcome to you all Commissioner Austin Letts. He was appointed by the City Commission meeting last month. So.
Welcome. We'll look forward to getting to know you through the period of time here. All right, so has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our March 23rd meeting? And if so, are there any corrections or that we need to make? If there are no corrections, then I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Hackler is approved. First, a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Leeson second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the meeting minutes have been approved. We'll go on to new business now, I believe. First item is case number 23-02-REZ, public hearing for the consideration of a request to rezone 1016 South Haverhill from AR Agricultural Residential District to I-1 Light Industrial District.
Yes, Vice Chair, Evergy is requesting this zone change. This property is located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of El Dorado. It is currently zoned as agricultural residential. However, as you can see by the aerial, there's a lot of industrial type uses around the area. Evergy is requesting a rezone to I-1 Light Industrial within the City of El Dorado's zoning classification to construct the extension of a electrical substation. They are here, and I imagine be willing to take any questions or make a presentation as well.
Okay. Would you like to come forward and make a presentation at this time? Please state your name and who you're with, your address, either one, if you're not from here.
Jessica Keck with Evergy, Topeka, Kansas. Because I was going to mess it up.
You want to talk about signs?
I could. I'd probably do better.
We would welcome that too.
So like Scott had mentioned, that we are planning on rezoning a site at 1016 South Haverhill Road. Property is currently zoned agricultural rural. We're planning on going to light industrial. We're going to use the same access road for the proposed substation that we are using for the existing substation. And I keep hitting the wrong button. I'm going to get rid of the mouse because it's going to mess me up. So the transmission lines that come into the current substation are being rebuilt and modernized. So with this modernization, a bunch of the substation equipment is getting rebuilt as well. And we're proposing the relocated site for the rebuilt substation. So we'll build a new substation and then decommission the old one. And it's easier that way. That way you can move everything over and not have cross wires and stuff like that when you're working. It'll be built in a 2-ring bus configuration that will provide operational flexibility to support the Frontier Refinery and area loads. Relocating it, like I was saying, west of the current location provides us the opportunity to reroute our lines to avoid the line crossing, eliminates a non-standard underground transmission line inside the substation, and avoids underground gas transmission lines to the southeast and east of the substation. The new proposed site is about 7.5 acres and is needed to increase the reliability and support continued load growth in El Dorado and Butler County. The Site was selected due to its proximity. There's a transmission line that runs right along the northeast side of it into our existing substation. When we look for sites, we look for proximity to our lines, topography. We like to have a flat area, no floodplains, impacts on surrounding landowners. The surrounding landowners are mostly industrial, with the college to the west, and a willing landowner. We always like to deal with willing landowners. The surrounding area, like I had mentioned, is predominantly commercial or industrial. Butler County to the west, and then some miscellaneous non-residential buildings to the north. This is just the site plan, and it's really hard to read, and I can't even read it, but the dimensions are 550 by about 600, like I said, about 7.5 acres. And this is just some existing site photos of the current location. Pretty flat. And then we went through the golden factors as well, the zoning and the uses of the property. It's currently zoned agricultural and is in a commercial industrial area of Butler County. The existing substation is currently to the east of it, and there are no nearby residences. Suitability of the subject property to the proposed use. The property is ideal for a substation due to the topography. It's pretty flat. The proximity to the transmission lines, it increases costs taking the transmission lines into the substation if it's close to it, and the lack of negative impact on residences. The impact on proposed properties. Nearby properties will not be significantly impacted by noise occurring from the substation. The newer substations, people always talk about, their substation, am I going to hear it humming? The transformers in the newer substations are significantly quieter than the older substations. And quite frankly, if we were standing outside a newer one, you can't hear it once you get outside the fence line. They're pretty quiet. Traffic on local roads will increase slightly during construction, and then after construction, it's going to be like it is now. About once a month, you'll have maintenance checks in the substation. The length of time during the property remained vacant, it was drive-in theater, which closed about 2014, and then it was mostly removed in 2022. Relative gain to the public health and safety and welfare compared to the loss in value or hardship. The project will improve the reliability of Evergy's electrical grid in Butler County and El Dorado. We'll be able to restore power more quickly after outages, which improve public health and welfare. Like I said, we're rebuilding the transmission lines, and we've already rebuilt some of the ones that run southeast of this location. So we'll go northeast and start rebuilding those as well. Northwest, I'm sorry. Conformance of the requested changes to the comprehensive plan. Butler County's comprehensive plan, Chapter 10, states that existing utility facilities are to be maintained and improved to serve the present population. El Dorado's comprehensive plan, objective 1.3, states to provide sufficient public utilities for the long-term growth needs of El Dorado. The new substation will support and provide more reliable power to the existing Evergy customers and will support future growth in the area. Impact on community facilities. Like I said, there's going to be some temporary impact with increased traffic during construction. And then we'll work with the city and county to minimize the impact, and we'll get whatever permits are required from the city and the county prior to doing any work. After the substation is constructed, it'll be unmanned except for routine emergency maintenance. Opposition or support of the neighborhood residents. One of the purposes of tonight's meetings, as of this evening though, we have not received any direct feedback from the public regarding this project. We are committed to working with any concerned stakeholders to ensure their concerns are heard. And then recommendations of professional staff. We've engaged with the city of El Dorado to ensure that this project satisfies all requirements, and we have received approval from the Butler County Commissioners for this project. And that is all I have. Have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, sir.
What's a KV going through that?
Oh, is this a 161? 138 to 69, I'm sorry.
Will it stay at that?
Yes.
Does it feed the refinery?
Yes, it helps feed the refinery.
How big of electromagnetic field does that create?
So we've had a lot of EMS. Actually, it's in the car, but I have an EMF book with me. there's been some studies in the EMFs, and I don't present this very well, but they drop off significantly the higher the voltage is, quite frankly. So you have
okay.
less EMF the higher the voltage is. So if you take an EMF reading, Evergy will come out and do EMF readings for anybody that's ever concerned about it, free of charge. Will come to even to people's homes and do them. But you'll get higher EMF readings from your microwave or
Sure.
stuff like
So the
that.
college didn't have concern, that tank farm didn't have a concern with any of that?
Staff did not hear of any other concerns. You did have one gentleman that was at the prior public hearing. I spoke to him after the meeting that we did not have, if that makes sense, since we didn't have a quorum. He is the leasee of the property just north, and he was just curious about what was going on.
So as the voltage goes up, the EMF drops?
And I don't understand it.
Okay.
We had a project manager, one of our other managers, that explained it very well. I will learn for the next one, but I don't know how it happens, but there's something with how it is, and the higher the voltage, the lower the EMF on it.
How tall of a structure will it be?
In the so the substation, the actual substation structures are about 25 feet. The transmission poles are out there now, and that'll probably be replaced, or probably going to be anywhere from 80 to 100 feet, depending. And that's kind of consistent where they're at now. And then if you would go out and, like I said, they're replacing the line that goes southeast out of the existing substation. They're replacing those lines, and I think that project is probably almost done or already completed. It'll be very comparable to those poles. It'll be likely a single pole, steel pole, and I think you might have H-frames going into that now. I'm not positive though.
So, yeah, Evergy has just completed, for within our city limits, the Southwest Traffic Way, up that corridor, that right of way there, with some replacement, and then along Orchard Street as well. You might have seen some of that going on, along Scully School. So
And
there's been a lot of work in the city limits here last year.
And what we're replacing should be similar to those poles.
The path will probably stay pretty much the same as it is.
Correct.
The only difference you may have is where it transitions from the transmission lines to the new
Right.
substation.
And if it does veer off the path, I know, and this isn't for this conversation obviously, but I know there's a junkyard across the highway, or an auto body yard or something across the highway. I think we might have to veer somewhere around there at one point. That was in the discussions. But we would work with the landowners on those
Sure.
and make sure some agreement was reached. So yeah, the plan is to go in the same route to replace.
So there's not gonna be a 100-foot power pole out there or anything?
There shouldn't be. I can't guarantee. I don't know. I know the line hasn't been designed, but it
Okay.
should be similar to what's out there now in the same alignment. That's. It's been a long day. What is out there now?
And really what we're focusing on the change of the zoning of property, utilities, a lot within your regulations, like pole size and all that aren't really, regulated within your regulations, so.
Well, I'd offer a little pushback on that. It says zoning decisions must be based upon the best interest of the entire community. That's why I'm asking about the
Oh,
height
yeah,
and stuff,
no, I
yeah.
agree.
Okay.
Does Evergy own the land, or are you leasing it?
The property. We have an option to purchase it. So once we get past this, and that's why we do this, because
You don't want to buy something you can't use?
yeah. So once we get past this, we will purchase the property.
I'm surprised that it wasn't already zoned commercial since it was a drive-in.
The previous property owner advocated very hard to keep that agricultural for many, many years, so.
Is there any plans in the future to upgrade the KV on the line?
No, it should stay at 138 to 69 kV. Because if we were gonna upgrade it, it would be while we did the rebuild, and we just rebuilt the other line.
Well, I think You've answered all our questions. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing if there's anybody to speak about this. No one is coming forward at this time, so looks like we do not have any opposition, so I'll close the public hearing. And now we will discuss it amongst ourselves, commissioners. If you have any questions, concerns.
My questions that I ask Evergy really come because of the bad press they got in Wichita, where something got built and then all of a sudden people were unhappy. And so I think it's fair to ask them those questions. And evidently Butler doesn't care, the tank farm doesn't care, so they seem to satisfy those things.
Okay. Well, if there's no opposition or further discussion, I would entertain a motion on this matter.
I move to recommend approval of case number 23-02-REZ, an application by Evergy to rezone 1016 South Haverhill Road from AR Agricultural Residential District to I-1 Light Industry District for reasons stated in the staff recommendations heard at this public hearing.
Okay?
Second.
Commissioner Leeson's made the motion. Hackler's jumped on with a second. Mr. Rickard, would you do a roll call?
Commissioner Bellis.
Yes.
Commissioner Bichetti.
Yes.
Commissioner Hackman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Leeson.
Yes.
Commissioner Letts. Commissioner Wong absent. Commissioner Nichols.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yeah.
Passed unanimous there. So when can they expect for this to come up, be carried further there?
This will be at the city commission meeting, the third Monday of June.
Okay.
So that would be June 19th.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go on to item 2, case number 23-04-SUP, public hearing for the consideration of a request to special use permit for a micro distillery at 518 North Star Street. Mr. Rickard, do you have that presentation ready?
Yes. Commissioners, Mr. Herb Llewellyn is requesting this special use permit to allow micro distillery at the 518 North Star. The owner of the property has provided a letter approving of his request, Mr. Llewellyn making this request. The definition of a micro distillery is not a listed use in our zoning regulations, but the intent, staff feels it meets the description of microbrewery. So that is a reason for that. The applicant's here if you should have any questions of him. And you've all had a chance, I'm sure, to review the staff report.
So would the requester like to address us on any of this, or?
I'm happy to if you'd like me to.
Okay. well,
I'd like to hear from Mr. Llewellyn about it.
Okay, there we go. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Herb Llewellyn. I live at 1661 Pennsylvania Street here in El Dorado, and I am asking to open a micro distillery. This building is what you would call North Ward Junction. The last renter in it was Rick's Mower. I think they were there for a year or two. The last really big use was Mark Myers, the owner's wife, had an antique store in there and had little booths, and I think that hasn't gone on for probably 15 years maybe. And so, set mostly empty, I started thinking about and working toward this for, years ago. Tried to be downtown, and I just never could get a building that worked and, or that I could get into, or that was reasonably priced. The biggest thing I need is I need a tall ceiling. The distillation tower is 10 feet tall, but it's actually, there's two distillation units. One's a pot distillation unit and the other's a tower distillation unit. I guess I'd say it's much like what the refinery does to oil. I'm gonna do it with mash. And so I think Scott's assessment that it's like brewing, it's just taking brewing to one more step. You're just getting rid of, you're getting rid of some of the flavor, and you're just keeping the liquor. Plan on making all kinds of stuff. I think what I think will do the best is going to be whiskey and bourbon, but I will make rum and vodka and probably gin. I have the ability to make tequila. Can't use that word in the United States. You can only use the word tequila on a liquor if you are in a specific, you're near tequila to Mexico, actually. So I'm probably producing agave spirit, but you would know it all as tequila.
Are you waiting on your micro distillery license from the state based
So,
on this?
and actually, to ask the United States of America, I have to have two things. I have to have a lease, and I have to have a letter from the city that says it's zoned right. So this is what I'm waiting on. Everything else, I've done everything else. My request is just waiting on a letter from the city for this site.
My question I guess I have for you, Mr. Llewellyn, is what aromatics do you expect that might be into the neighborhood? I'm just curious.
I don't think any.
Okay.
It's a sealed system, so what goes in comes out as a fluid, and so, yeah, I don't think you'll smell anything.
Is this gonna be a bar,
So-
or is it just gonna be a distribution, distilling and
Today-
distribution?
The plan today is just to make it, so it's a manufacturing site. If customers want me to have the ability to sell at it, I will, but I don't want to. I'd much rather you go to Willie's and buy it or the Goose, and I don't really particularly want to go into that business. It is zoned for it, and so, yeah, but I don't want to put the time into, and the lifestyle. I don't want to be up to midnight, and I don't, yeah. And all those things that go with the bar, that's not why I'm doing it really. State law allows you to give small samples, and so I think you'll get less than a thimbleful. And if you want to give away more than that, actually, you can't give away more than that. If you want to do more than that, you got to pull the license and sell it. And it's not my intent today to do that.
So you won't need a liquor license, is what you're saying,
Right.
but we'll pay taxes. because you
Oh,
sell.
pay big taxes. No. Taxing, sinning has been popular in this country for a couple of 100 years. And so this micro distillery gets taxes, you pay them on your production. When it's ready to go on a bottle, actually when it's ready to leave, you pay a production tax, and it's a gallonage fee, and then you pay again when it's sold.
So if I understand this right, the special use would be for solely for distillation, not any type of activities other than that? No,
The
no bar
proper-
type or anything like that? That would be a further approval if he actually wanted to open some type of a speakeasy or something, distributing it. That would be a further approval.
The property's zone C1 today.
Right.
So, bar could go there today.
Yeah, it
You
just,
know,
go to Tabitha and pull the light, write a check.
Our microbrewery regulations, oddly enough, for some reason, I think staff has identified this probably needs to be changed, is allowed by right in C2, so downtown. So if Mr. Llewellyn found a building downtown, you know, he could by right go in there today and distill and serve or do whatever he so wishes, as long as he's within those C2 regulations. C1 though, however, says you need a special use permit.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking this is there are houses around that.
Correct.
And so I'm just looking at the risk involved of this becoming a bar. And I understand I feel as much the same way about it. I've been interested about distilling. It is an interesting process, but I have no desire to hang out with people intoxicated, let alone till the wee hours of the morning. So I get that part. I'm just trying to, when we make this decision, make sure that we've covered our bases, that all of a sudden it's not just going to turn into a speakeasy or something.
And just to clarify, Vice Chairman, today that could happen with not any of y'all.
Nothing we could do about it.
involvement.
Fair enough.
And
The,
then,
the thing the applicant's asking that's unique about this is he wants to produce the product on site. To distribute is what he told you this evening,
Mhm.
but if he so desires in the future to sell it out of the building, to dispense it out of the building, to serve food,
That's already okay,
That's-
and there's nothing we can do.
that's already an allowable.
Okay.
use.
and then
Fair
it
enough.
gets to be, if it becomes a problem,
Right.
then it becomes a police issue.
Yeah,
And- and
exactly.
Downtown, you know, this block and the blocks that surround downtown are kind of unique. It's a buffer. So you'll see a lot of mixed uses. You'll see multifamily, higher density family. You'll see some industrial uses mixed in there. You'll see commercial. And, so a lot of your future land use maps, your current zoning, talks about these buffer areas where you go from different uses.
Mhm.
So,
And I believe that the majority of my sales is gonna, so Demo's gonna be my distributor. So, I believe that most of my product is gonna go in cases right next door to Demo's. Other distributors have told me that I will sell 50% out of my site. So I've heard that. I'm not believing it. If you've been to this property, there is good parking in back. I believe that's where customers will come, unless you don't know where you're going, and then you may park in front. But the real access to this building's in the back, and that's where the parking is.
What about the increased traffic, or is it just gonna be you doing it, or is there gonna be a large crew of people there doing it?
It's, so the system I'm gonna use will do 80 gallons at a time. So, essentially, and it'll take a day to run that. So I will make 15 gallons of whiskey or vodka or something a day. Not a lot. I don't think, well, you'll notice more than there was last month because no one's there. I suspect when Rick's was there, you had a lot more going on with the lawnmower guys coming and going than you will with me. I'll have, in all intents and purposes, one customer, and it's Demo. And so yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see any big traffic. And I think if it got bigger, that's another conversation. And so if it went over gangbusters, then there may be more. But if it did that, I may not be in this building.
Anybody else have any more questions, Mr. Llewellyn? Okay, thank you for your time. Okay, with that, I will open up the public hearing. If anyone has any pros or cons for this case. See no one coming forward, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing and invite any discussion by the Planning Commission.
Mr. Rickard, I know you sent the letters out, and maybe you said that right, no one, zero.
We haven't heard anything. In fact, Mr. Llewellyn's case and the prior case have been notified twice, via mail
Gotcha.
because of the 2 meetings, and we didn't hear anything.
I've talked to the property owner on the south and the north, and they're looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, with that, I'd entertain a motion on this case.
I move to recommend approval of case number 23-04-SUP, a request by Herb Llewellyn for special use permit to allow micro distillery on the property located at 518 North Star Street for the reasons set forth in the staff recommendations and heard at this public hearing.
Commissioner Hackler's made a motion. Do I get a second?
I'll second it.
And Leeson has seconded. Mr. Rickard?
Yes, Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Letts, Commissioner Leeson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hackler,
Yes.
Commissioner Fischetti,
Yes.
Commissioner Fellers.
Yes.
Sounds like a unanimous decision on that one as well.
In this case, we'll go to the City Commission June 5th.
Okay.
So there wasn't a protest period involved in this, so we're moving him forward soon just because of the lack of a meeting last time, trying to get things progressing.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Llewellyn, and good luck in your desire to be a spiritualist.
We'll see how much I like it after I get there.
Well, that tends to be the case a lot of times.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along to item number 3. Case number 23-03-REZ, public hearing for the consideration of a request to rezone 411 North Metcalf Road from I-1 Light Industrial to C1 General Business District. Mr. Rickard, do you have the presentation ready?
Yes, Nicholas and Maria Ingalls are requesting this zone change. The property is vacant and has been vacant since the area along Metcalf Road was platted in the 70s, I believe. So they're requesting this zone change. Specifically, they are interested in constructing a daycare facility on that site. To the west of this subject property, you have residential, multifamily residential. To the south, you have some industrial. North of it is a nursery. Zoned industrial, however, their use today is commercial in nature. And to the east, you have some difficult property to develop, frankly. There's floodplain and stuff on the east side of Metcalf Road. So staff feels this zone change, falls within what we envision the area. You've got that residential use to the west, going to commercial, which is a less intense use than its current zoning industrial. And the applicant's here, we'd like to hear from him.
Come forward, please, and state your name and address.
I'm Nick Ingalls. I actually live in Benton. We have a couple businesses, Ingalls Property Management here in El Dorado that we own. And then we have a Little's Early Learning Center in Benton that we built a couple years ago. And this is a property that we purchased about 10 years ago, thinking we would build for Ingalls Property Management, but found another property. And so this is one that we've identified and we think would be a good site for a daycare, being adjacent to the village, I guess. And we have a relationship with Circle Schools, memorandum of understanding with them, where we offer care in some of their elementaries. Unfortunately, Oil Hill is too small, so we're unable to offer care there. But this would allow us to serve that building as well and give discount to their teachers and staff. And so it was important for us to be within their district, and so this kind of worked out for that. And hoping, have not heard from any of the landowners, and hoping this just makes sense. So that's really all I have.
So, Mr. Ingalls, I have a question. First of all, I think it's a great project, but one thing you said, maybe raise some sort of flag for me.
Sure.
So teachers from Circle will get a discount at your business, and teachers from El Dorado will not.
Right, because we have a relationship with them where we are offering care in their buildings free of charge in Circle Schools. And so because of that, we're able to afford the discount. Now, you know, if money's good and all of that, and we're able to cash flow, then obviously I'm the product of two public school teachers, and I was one myself, and so that would be near and dear to us as well.
Sure. So I like you doing this, and I'm already telling you I'm going to vote yes, but I'm going to tell you as a 31-year high school teacher from El Dorado school systems, that doesn't set well with me.
Okay,
Just want that registered and noted.
sure.
That property's in Circle School District, isn't it?
It is.
But it's in the city of El Dorado.
As is all of the Oil Hill School.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not meant at all to be a slight to 490 or anything like that. It's just,
Right.
if El Dorado was interested in our program and we could offer the same thing that we're doing in Circle Schools, we
Have
would.
you approached them on that?
With the previous superintendent and I had a discussion, not the new one hasn't come on yet, but, I mean, yeah.
Are you willing to approach?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to try to take this everywhere, so.
And you think you might be able to work with them and even the playing field then?
I would absolutely be open to that, sure. Yeah, but just so you know, this is something that the superintendent of Circle approached us about, and so
Are you
that's.
getting funding from the Circle School District for that?
No. Other than them offering us free space and utilities
Within their schools?
within their schools.
How big of a structure are we talking?
Well, we don't know. I mean, there's some things at play. We could potentially be a couple years out, but this was the first step to get this going. Ideally, 82 children is what I would like to build for. That does not compare to First Baptist, I think, was licensed for 120. I think Educare was licensed for 150. Still doesn't solve the complete problem, but is a start. So, and you know, with this site, half of it's going to be parking. So that, and their setbacks are such that that limits me somewhat on how big a structure I can build.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Ingalls.
Yep.
At this time, I open up public hearing on this, if there's anyone that wants to come forward and speak to it. And I see no one moving as we clear out towards the end here, so we'll close the public hearing. Anybody, discussion amongst the planning commission?
I've got a question for Scott.
Yes, sir.
Knowing what all of this property was years ago, and with what Wichita's going through now up there on the north end with 50 years later and cancer and all that, has anybody ever done any soil testing up here?
So, you know, I'm not aware of any on that property. To the west, you know, there's been environmental assessments done.
I know it used to be a sludge pit for oil companies in that area,
There's some of those in that area.
and there's still oil being produced in that area. I was
Really
just,
frank, I mean, anywhere you get west of Haverhill Road in El Dorado, if you were to look at the oil well map of the holes drilled, it looks like Swiss cheese.
yeah,
And most of the the contaminants you find, that, you know, have been found, I'm not talking about this site, various sites in western El Dorado are unrefined crude products. And when exposed to sun and wind, dissipates. You know, I'm sure Mr. Ingles, if he gets a loan or talks to a bank, you know, the banks are gonna be interested in that sort of thing. Or him as a private property owner in making an investment, maybe investing it further. But there's simple things that can be done like vapor barriers.
yeah, it was just a curiosity question, like I say. But
And to let you all know, I did hear from the property owner to the north, the nursery, more concerned about how this would affect his property and his taxes. And, you know, really shouldn't have impact on his taxes, but we did discuss, you know, how this going from I-1 to a C1 was a better fit for his operation today. You know, having something loud and that could emit noise and what have you. And staff feels the same with residential development to the west. When these areas were originally zoned, you know, I don't think there was ever a concept of residential where Ryler and Flint Creek sit today.
yeah,
So if I'm not mistaken, this C, the commercial would be a more restrictive than industrial anyway, is that true? I mean,
I think industrial, it can be loud, it can
Right.
be dirty. There's things, you know, like their parking, or they could store stuff outside.
yeah, okay.
I'd just like to back up and just go on the record to say is that this planning and zoning is the city of El Dorado. It's not a 490 versus Circle School District. And so I am going to vote yes today, and I hope that Mr. Ingles will approach our superintendent, the current one or the next one, because I think daycare is universal. It's not a Circle thing. It's not a USD 490 thing. It is something we need desperately across the way. And it just didn't strike me well to hear that there would be an advantage for Circle teachers. Just on the record.
Okay, if that's our end of our discussion, I'd be entertaining a motion on this case.
I move to recommend approval of case number 23-02-REZ, an application by Nicholas and Maria Ingles to rezone 411 North Metcalf Road from I-1 Light Industrial District to C1 General Business District for reasons stated in the staff recommendation and heard at this public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Leeson? Mr. Rickard, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Leeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Letts. Yes. Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Fischetti,
Yes.
Commissioner Fellers,
Abstain.
Commissioner Hackler.
Yes.
This will go in front of the City Commission June 19th.
Okay. I think that's all of our new business, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do we have any old business?
We do not. We have a couple staff presentation items.
Okay. Okay. While you're setting up for that.
Is that rain on here? Good.
Rain.
So, planning commissioners, overview of signs. Earlier in the year, the city commission tasked the planning commission to look at sign regulations and specifically look at temporary sign regulations. We had a business owner come to the city commission and request that they look into that. So since that duration, what we tried to seek was input from the community to understand. We didn't want to come to you all with, not a good feeling of the other concerns that may be out there. So really at this point right now, I want to just very high level talk about our sign regs, remind some of you all. The City of El Dorado has sign regulations that talk about what types of signs are allowed in the city, be it a projecting sign, a wall sign, is it on the ground, where is it attached to the building. So here's some examples, like a canopy sign. You would see this generally in our C2 or downtown. Ground signs is more familiar with what you would see on the West Central, so that C1 commercial district. And all of these signs are allowed by right, or there's variances, what have you, in different zoning districts around the city. The signage is tied to what's assigned zoning on the property. Monument signs, so business office parks, schools are where you see this type. Elevated signs. So there's just a bunch of different types of signs. And within our sign regulations are what we call standards, how big they can be, how tall, what type of light they can emit, the brightness. It gets into the safety, how does it impact the traffic, the traveling public. Is the sign too large for the area? So here's some examples. So what staff has to regulate is, here's like a downtown look. Well, this wouldn't be recommended because there's no continuity to the signage. Steer business owners to continuity. Like this sign here below is out of scale of the building, so we would talk about that. So not only are there hard numbers, but there's interpretation in these too. How does it fit in with the area and how it affects things. There's a lot of exemptions in signs, but all those exemptions are politically based, and those are ever changing with the Kansas legislator. What's allowed for politicians when it's time to go vote. The memorial signs, we have things for garage sale signs, they need to be on your property. I know we see them thrown up all over the place, and it's something hard to regulate. But it even goes into your regs, you can go into how many garage sales you can have, where you can put signs, what's prohibited. And then we get into the temporary signs, and what we have today, which the city commission wanted us, tasked you guys to look into, were our temporary signs. The definition of a temporary sign in El Dorado, its intent is to talk about a special event, a special service, something unique that's occurring. Your regulations as they're crafted today talk about permanent signage. That's what the regulations seek, is the permanent sign. If you were, if Orchard's was having a sale on cattle panels and wanted the whole town to know about it, that's what we call a temporary sign that you would see put out near the right of way. Temporary signs are, temporary in nature, so vinyl signs, the size of realtor signs, those sorts of things. And that type of signage is allowed in the city, but it's not allowed for more than 30 days within a year's time frame. So that 30 days does not have to be consecutive. That can be 30 days throughout the year. That could be for 30 Fridays in a row at the business owner's discretion. I will say temporary signs are a difficult thing to regulate. They pop up all the time. Code enforcement does the best they can to see them or find them or talk to those businesses, or even homeowners that put up an errant sign on a corner of a busy street that try to advertise. I would say from my judgment, the intent of your sign regulations that there are today is to reduce clutter and not have so much of that happen. Obviously, as you all are sitting there, things are popping in your head probably of, gas stations or certain places around town that you'll see something thrown up that something's on sale or something of that nature. Part of what we looked into is what are some communities doing around, and a lot of communities around similar don't necessarily regulate temporary signs, but there's a few that we thought you all may be interested in hearing, like Emporia's. Emporia allows a temporary sign for a whole year, just as long as you come and permit it for the year. And you can have one. You can change that one out to different messages.
Did you say it's permitted? You have to apply for a permit?
A permit. So today, in El Dorado, you have to apply for a permit too. It's a $10 permit for a temporary sign. So Emporia the same way. Apply for a permit. That permit's good for a year. You're allowed up to 24 square feet of one message, but that message can be switched out. Newton allows them to be displayed for 90 days, and they shall be removed after 90 days. They can't exceed 10 square feet in Newton. And they can't be any taller than 4 feet. Some of these cities get into like, you can't use T-posts to hang a vinyl. I mean, they get really into the weeds, some of them, but Hutchison allows you to go 30 consecutive days or 60 calendar days per year. So if you wanted to pick 60 individual days to roll out your message you want the public to see, you can do that with a permit.
Somebody's counting that?
And that's the other enforcement. It's difficult. And then Andover's 30 days, 4 times a year. So Wichita's 1 per location and not more than 30 days, and limited to only being special events. So kind of really similar to what yours is today. Part of the feedback we wanted to get was from the public and business owners. So specifically, the city did some messaging out on Facebook. We did get 6, I believe. Let's make sure I'm not missing one of these. 7 responses from, and most of these individuals are business owners within the community, saying anywhere from, I'll allow a longer period to just get rid of any regulations, as long as it's not impacting traffic. Do we really care? To, if you want to have a regulation, make sure you have the capabilities to enforce it. So things of that nature. And then staff asked the Chamber of Commerce, you know, if he could, to try to get more input to bring you, they sent out an email blast to their members over 2 times, and unfortunately, the only feedback we got from that had to do with truck route signage and not, you know, business signage. So a small segment of feedback, but, you know, a lot of these people are business owners, which it impacts them. So anyway, from extending it out, to having no regulations, to, you know, sticking to what we have today.
I think the main thing and my concern in issues like this is making something that you can enforce. Otherwise, it's just a noise that nobody's gonna pay attention to. I do like the limit, you know, because I've lived in communities, been to communities where there are signs that are temporary of nature, you know, with the wire frame, and they're stuck in the ground, and they're there until they deteriorate and go away, and it does look awful. And I mean, you know, this necessarily isn't a country club area or anything, but I mean, at what point there should, I believe there should be some kind of a limit that where somebody, whether it's public works people that are going around doing cleanup along the sidewalks or whatever, at some point they have a ability that they can snatch the sign out of the ground, throw it in the trash if somebody hasn't come picked it up, without that person coming unhinged over their sign being. But, and then likewise, if you're in a business and you've got, you know, I've been in areas where they've gone out of business, sale signs out on the front way for 6 years, or, you know, multiple, you know. And so there's just different things with this, but I guess my question would be, is there any more definitive concern about what we need to look at, or is it just, do we need to look at it and kind of think if it's reasonable, or?
I think, you know, we had city commissioners, that, wanted to look into it, and some specific, like, you know, we don't really care about this, you know, that kind of mindset. So let's find out some information, let's hear what, you know, the business community has to say. I will say, you know, if you were to drive El Dorado, I mean, compared to driving another community, I'd say you'd see a lot less of those. And it's something code enforcement enforces. A lot of times when something's witnessed, you know, a phone call will be made, and generally they just get taken down. Rarely do they fill out permits.
And that's where my concern for the enforcement is. Somebody, I don't want somebody to put a sign out and feel like that they're, you know, they've seen somebody put a sign out and not get a thing said to it, and the sign's out there for 6 months, and they feel like, well, I just put this thing out 2 days ago, and they're targeting me, and I'm getting nailed on it, which we can't have jurisdiction over the enforcement of it, but we kind of need to, I feel like, make a reasonable, enforceable.
So they'll get a sample letter like this, and, you know, it'll say, dear property owners, come to our attention, you know, this is their, you know, apply for a permit, or these are the regs.
So have we had multiple violations, and so therefore we need to address this, or was it just one?
You know, there was a request made to the city commission.
Correct.
So,
I watched all the commission meetings, you know, and I know that business, and I think it's fine. Can't we just give a special use permit and not have a big discussion and say, it's great. I've been to that location, I've seen the flags, it looks awesome. I guess my concern is now that, how close are we gonna let them get to an R1 zoning, residential R1? To me, That's why the applicant that came before the commission, I look at it, I'm like going, that's a perfect place for flags, have them up all day long, all year long. Can't we just grant that applicant a special use permit?
No, I think
Variation?
we need to recraft our regulations. If that's the desire, we need to say something. And it would be my suggestion, if it goes that route, to say, you know, these are allowed, and maybe limit it to a certain number, you know, 1, 2, whatever the desire may be, but not free will, put up as many as you want. But something of that, and then definitely speak to when they become ragged or weathered.
Correct.
or
So we don't have that in there now, because that's what I had down, is when they're faded or tattered, and there are some in town that are that way. That bothers me much more than a 10-foot one that's pristine. I guess the other thing I have for the commissioners to talk about is, if I'm living in an R1 area, I don't wanna see a flag, a 10-foot flag, flying next to my house, and I just have a hard time with that. If I have a house and I see a 10-foot flag flapping.
How many people are actually filing these permits?
Very, very few.
I was gonna say, 'cause there's a lot of real estate signs, and I can't see people coming in and actually getting a permit for that.
Real estate signs are exempted. Say if someone's building on a property, or, you know, say someone pulls a permit to re-roof their house or whatever, those type of signs can be put in the yard where the work's taking place. You know,
How about auction signs? Is that
auction signs, as long as they're on the property where the auction's occurring, they're allowed in there,
We're talking about city limits of El Dorado, right?
within the city limits. Correct.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen these same flags currently up. Have those people got the same letters to take them down?
Yeah.
Sometimes with the auction thing, they put them in a corner, so it's not really adjacent or on the property. So that's kind of a,
Most of your complaints have been downtown, haven't they?
No, and I would generally say, unless they're weathered, they're not really complaint-based unless it's a business that knows they can't do it, that's calling in to complain.
Well, if it's a business putting out a sign, if they want to leave it there permanently, shouldn't they pay a sign fee?
If you put up a permanent sign, yeah, you're coming in getting a building permit and paying a permit.
Okay, if they're wanting to put up, like East Central, the loan places, if they wanted to stick them big flags they did have up out there, shouldn't they have to pay a permit fee and stick within regulations?
That's up to you all. I mean, the fee is really not a big part of it. I think the application's a bigger part of like knowing when it went up. If we want to have the capacity to be able to go back and say, hey, it's been there for a year or whatever, if we change our regs. But getting back to the way they're crafted today is temporary signs it's crafted today more of a special event, a special advertising, something that's happening, something different. Where, you know, a lot of them, you brought up the loan cash place. Well, they're just wanting to advertise what they do for business, and do we care? I mean, does the planning
Is there any
commission care?
verbiage in the ordinances that differentiates between, I got dishwashers on sale versus this is a product or a service that we offer at this business, just trying to drive traffic into a business? Is there any differentiating between the two? If it's not a permanently hard mounted sign somewhere, or?
I mean, you could come and put dishwasher, I sell dishwashers and get it for 30 calendar days a year, and pay your $10 permit today and put it out there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, on the temporary signage, I know this is just what you've got written on the screen here is a summary,
And I,
but is there something in the verbiage that differentiates between, just to narrow it down to businesses, because I think that's kind of what we're talking about here, where a business is saying, hey, general public, these are things that I offer as a product or a service that we sell all the time, versus we're going out of business, or we have a sale this month on XYZ or whatever. Is there any differentiating between those two?
no, like I'd say, it's interpretation of the intent, the way we read it, is your regs steer towards you can advertise a lot on your structure, on your building, or on your pole, or on your ground sign, your permanent sign. You can put tons of information in. I think you all will soon see what Wendy's looks like, and it will be plastered with Wendy's everything. So there's very little limitations on what you can mount permanently to your building or a permanent sign. Not that we have a problem with advertising the services you provide on the temporary signs. I was just letting you know our read into the intent of a temporary sign, and it talks about for special events. So that's the way we would read it.
Okay, so having heard that from you, if it's clarified as a special event, meaning sale on a product, special on a service prices, or whatever it is.
We're
Say you got
hiring
a
now.
auto body, or not auto body, but like a mechanic shop is gonna do $15 oil changes, which will never happen now. But if they were, they would have a temporary sign offering that special. But if they just wanted to put out a sign saying, we do tire rotations all the live long day for X amount of, or they don't have to have a price on it, we just offer that service,
We'd love to today. But I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
the intent is the way we read it.
Yeah.
Your temporary sign rates are crafted
Sure.
for that
but the city's,
$15 oil change especially.
So the sign has to have words, what about a giant Gumby or a giant elephant blow up?
Same thing.
It's a sign,
Yeah, you're
Okay.
drawing attention.
right, okay.
Man, it's actually stated in the regs, if it moves, flaps, or anything,
Yeah,
it's a moving sign.
it's a sign, yeah,
a temporary sign.
yeah.
Okay.
So like posters and windows don't count as signs?
There's square footage allowance, and it varies by district to district. So for every street footage, every footage of street, you can have up to 100 square foot of signage on your building. So it gets pretty large scale. But we do get back into, that little picture I showed about context and, you wouldn't want does it fit within the area? Does it fit within the other uses?
Well, when it comes right down to it, you have to have a lot of complaints. It don't sound like to me. And as long as they're not interfering with the neighbor, with their signs, I don't.
So you're thinking just change and allow it to happen and
Well,
I don't think that's what Gerald's
it's
saying.
a temporary sign, it could be almost any size, I'll put it that way, for a day or two, or a week, or something like that. But if it doesn't interfere with the neighbor, it can be longer. But as long as you don't interfere with your neighbor next door to you, or something like that, I think what you got already is adequate. Because you don't have a lot of complaints about it. And I'm sure you always have somebody complaining if they feel like they're getting taken advantage of. In other words, he gets advertised and you're telling me I can't, or something like that. But it sounds like it's pretty good already. I don't.
Well, I think we're also overlooking the current ordinances severely. It's not being enforced with that 30-day time frame. We just overlook them. But as a business owner myself, I come from it from the standpoint of it's tough enough, especially in El Dorado, Kansas, to keep a business open. And I got two of them downtown. And if I wanted to put a sign up to advertise, to get anybody to walk in the door, I feel like I don't want to be penalized and limited to, okay, well, you can bring some more people in 30 days, but for the other 11 months of the year, nope, good luck. You just happen to see your sign, because your permanent signs, I'm telling you, my cigar store's been in business for 2.5 years, and I have people who live in El Dorado who just discovered us yesterday. And I have a 5-foot by 9-foot permanent sign hanging in the air, and they don't see it. But if I had a flappy sign or something that would draw attention, because I've thought about it, I can order that stuff myself, but I don't know what to do to bring more customers in the front door. And that's what we suffer from, every business everywhere, especially in El Dorado. I found downtown, we need to figure out a way that we can draw more traffic in our doors, and drawing attention is the only way to do it. And yeah, I'm not in favor of clutter and dilapidated, and if you put a, what do you call it, a feather flag thing or whatever up, and it gets ratty because it's been out there forever, yeah, you should be taking that down. That shouldn't be allowed. It's not a good thing for our community. It clutters it up, it trashes up the place. But the same thing goes with the person that has and I know I've seen one in town, I just can't remember where it is, the old message board that's on wheels, that's been sitting there for 15 or 20 years, and they just change the message on it once in a while, and now it's been there so long it's probably sunk into the ground, it's considered permanent. It's no different in that, as long as if they keep it clean and make it nice. I mean, we got to do something to help and not penalize our businesses who are struggling enough.
So Commissioner Hackler, I understand your point, and I don't know where your businesses are, but I'm not a smoker either, or a cigar smoker. But I'm just curious, how close are you to an R1? Are you where there's...
I'm right across from Butler County Courthouse in the old White Eagle building.
So I'm going to come back to, I think you tied into its closest to, I mean, if it's on Central, it's on 6th. Those are all places where you just let them have it.
So maybe with your mindset is temporary signs are allowed in C1, C2 zoning districts. Or maybe just C1 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to single out, probably defend businesses that abut residential, but, it just in my, I'm running through that through my head.
I still think they should be temporary. I mean, 30 days is too short, but, it shouldn't be there all year. So if you could figure out a way to break it up a little bit.
I don't know, if you got a C1 and you're on 6th, I mean, Commissioner Hackler's place, I've got no problem, go for it.
And unfortunately, just like we had a situation with Mr. Llewellyn, we were clarified from Mr. Rickard that just like everything downtown, we've got everything from R1, R2, R3, C1, 2, and light industrial, all kind of hodgepodged everywhere. And so you might have a C1, C2 business that we got 2 of them here, and then it's residential, and then it picks back up into C1. So that's a touchy subject because it's allowed down the block, but you can't because you got a house next to it.
Sure. You know what, actually, if the commissioners would allow, I mean, we do have the director of Main Street here. We could ask her opinion.
I didn't even think she had her hand raised a minute ago.
Thank you.
Would you like to come forward, please? And
Thank you.
I think we can allow this, can't we, Scott?
Sure, it's your discretion.
Thank you. My name is Emily Cannell. I'm the director of El Dorado Main Street. And you all have just been looking at a downtown master plan, for example. And the downtown is not just Central and Main Street. The downtown is the heart of the community, and it has very special qualities. And I agree that I think you all have done a very good job with the sign ordinances that you have. Because if there is a problem, whether they're strictly enforced is a question of whether we have the capacity to do that. But as long as you have reasonable, and you guys are all, everything you've said tonight is very reasonable about this. I mean, we want to support businesses. We don't want a tacky-looking, tourist-looking town. Signs are signals of something that's going on that you can't understand clearly without a sign. You have one of the most iconic signs in all of El Dorado on El Dorado Theater. And we love that the lights are on that. You know, I mean, that's a historic, iconic sign. It's a signal of a certain kind of activity that goes on only in the downtown. So you can see that. I can go on and on about this. But I do think that you should not dilute what you have. But I think there needs to be, as you all try very hard to do, consider on a case-by-case basis and try as best as you can to be fair. You're never going to do one, in my view, that's better than this one. I mean, it will have, every single regulation has weaknesses. That's why you all are here. It has to be something, some way that you can consider special circumstances, etc. So number one, I want to congratulate you for taking on a complex question in response to concerns, complaints, and so on. But I really would like to enforce this. I would not like to see all of a sudden, just because you're on Central, or, I mean, the downtown needs a signage program. You can't tell when you get to the historic district. Signage is also wayfinding and placeholding. And we need signs in the downtown, and we've been working on a program for some time that lets you know when you get to the historic district. A lot of people who live in El Dorado don't even know we have one, much less a cigar store. I mean, it's 162 buildings that have been recognized by the Department of Interior as nationally, historically significant for the whole country, right? And most of the people who live in this town don't know where they are because we haven't been able to devise a sign program to bring to you all to say, does this fit in with what, first talking with Scott, but very hopefully soon, proudly, coming to you and say, here's our sign program. And I mean, I would hate to see you really alter this. Just try to figure out ways to do what you're doing, which is try to be fair in your considerations. And know that temporary signing is an important part of, it's something that blooms and then it goes away. And if you put signs out on Central for all year, people are going to stop seeing them, just like you stop seeing them on 6th Street or you stop seeing them on South Main. They're just flapping around. You don't care about them. We get inured to those kinds of things. Temporary signs are powerful because they are temporary, because they are signals that something is happening, and you better pay attention to it now because it's not going to happen forever. And that's its power. And its design of signs is fascinating, and you look out at all of the franchises. It's a perfect example of the kind of money and the kind of conscious study that those businesses have done to get your attention, our attention. Right? I mean, it's genius what they do. And we're, as you pointed out, we're going to have another one with Wendy's, and they compete with each other all the time. But you don't have any trouble finding them. You don't have any trouble seeing them. It's the same franchise row in every single city in the country, and particularly in rural Kansas. You've got that, and we love the businesses and the tax dollars that come from them and the services and all that kind of stuff. But signage is a real science. And the placement of, and the colors, and all of that kind of stuff. If your signs aren't working for you, take a look at the theater sign. Take a look at those franchise signs. I mean, we want to help as a community. We want our commerce to thrive. But I wouldn't gut this program. I think it's a great business support to have this, and we'll be looking forward to bringing a signage program to you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Emily.
Sorry.
Thanks.
So I'm going to come back to this. I feel this whole thing got started because one person came before the commission with a very legitimate concern. I have visited that business. I have looked at those signs. It's absolutely, I don't know why we can't just have people come and say, hey, I'd like to do this, and just say, like we do special use permits versus changing the whole ordinance. Tell me one other, there was one person that came before the commission that started this. Was there anybody else?
There was comments on Facebook after the fact when we seeked input. And then like I mentioned, the chamber, we didn't get anything back.
So I'm just saying, is it a possibility that we can take it case by case? I know the desire of the commission
Yeah.
is this, but again, maybe they would rescind our, if we could get some sort of agreement. And I would encourage the other commissioners here to go out. Mr. Meyer is actually here. His detail shop's out there. It's a wonderful place. His flags are fine. They're not bothering anybody. There was one person who legitimately came forward.
And that's why we deliberately tried to take some time to seek input between that, because we wanted to understand. And that's, you know, we were ready to talk about it last month, and unfortunately
Yeah.
that meeting, but, you know.
I think Mr. Watson was trying to parallel me a little bit, weren't you, or not? And what you were saying?
Well, the guy ought to have the option of putting up a sign that'll benefit him, or whatever he decides it is. As long as it's not vulgar or something like that, he ought to be able to put up a sign that he wants to use. Now, if he interferes with people going down the street, or if he interferes with the neighbor or something, that's a different story. But what he puts up should be his business, and if you want to make him buy a $10 permit or something like that, nothing wrong with that. But the whole thing is, if he's not interfering with the next door neighbor or somebody else, let him, leave him alone. If he wants to have a ragged sign, let him have a ragged sign. It only hurts, you know.
No, I'd have to agree with that, disagree with that. If they're raggedy signs, they need to come down, period.
Yeah, they should be maintained. I mean, there should be a reasonable maintaining of them.
Well, it's no different than getting the houses red tagged when they're dilapidated and not being cared for.
Right.
He's not gonna be there very long. You can't do that, to stay there and stay in business.
Who's gonna enforce raggedy signs? What makes the sign raggedy?
Right. I mean, that's,
Besides the public,
right.
until we get a complaint from
So
them.
now we're back to the enforceable part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say,
Well, and
Please start looking
and
at
it's
that.
basically, at this point, it's, the way I perceive it is their temporary sign ordinances is unenforced. That we're not really, until there's a complaint, they got other things to do, and signage has been out that you would technically be classified as temporary for years. I mean, I kind of agree with Commissioner Leeson that I don't think it's unreasonable to think that there should be something that if you have a dilapidated eyesore, it's no different than an eyesore business or house that eventually it's gonna get tagged and you're gonna have to fix it up or they're gonna tear it down. The citizens of this town don't want to live next door to a junkyard. And if you're gonna make a junkyard in your property, then you're gonna take care of it or somebody's gonna take care of it for you. Because it lowers my property or my property value, and it impacts our town as a whole. But if you've got a nice looking sign and you're just trying to draw some business, which like I said earlier, it's hard enough as a business owner, I know. For an example, I make banners at my business, F1 imprint. If I wanted, and I thought about doing this, but now I'm kind of wondering, is it even allowed to make a banner that just says, "We make banners"? But to put it out for 30 days is irrelevant, because there might be somebody out of town for 30 days and they come back after it's been told I gotta take it back down. They don't even know I make banners. So
Make the sign that is readable and not tore up.
yeah,
And other than that, leave him alone.
Well, sounds like you can put a banner in the window.
I guess. I mean, then I can't have anybody driving by looking in my display windows of what we got in the store. I mean,
I think we're gonna
but
agree.
stagnation goes with everything, even the permanent sign, just
Sure.
like Emily was bringing up, the temporary signs, people start ignoring them. They ignore my 5 foot by 9 foot ×2 sign in the air. They don't see it anymore because it's been there forever. Now your nationwide franchises, I don't have to read McDonald's to see a Golden Arches 2 miles away. I know where it's at. And I'm not reading the sign, I just recognize the shape. But when you don't have a nationwide franchise, we're at the mercy of the public that's gonna see it. And sign stagnation is a real thing. I took a lot of marketing classes in college. If you got 2 seconds of attention, they're gonna look at it in 2 seconds. If you can't get your point across in 2 seconds, it's ignored. They won't read anything on that sign. But if you have signs that are out there forever, she's right, it will be ignored.
Yeah.
But if you mix it up and you just change up colors and you offer the same service just to say, hey, but general public, we offer this. People will look over there and say, oh, I didn't know that they did that. And you might come in here and instead of driving all the way to Wichita and spending their money. And that's something that as a business owner, it impacts me. And it impacts every business owner downtown that's trying to draw traffic, so.
So I agree, I think it'd be best to change C1, leave the others alone.
So I'm feeling there's a strong desire that something needs to be looked at, something deeper needs to be done. Potential changes, maybe new language. So should staff prepare a public hearing and then we make a motion at the public hearing of what their recommended changes to the city commission are? Do you all feel like a change needs to occur? From what I've heard of the discussion, I think that's
What change are we talking? There's change and there's change.
that can be deliberated at the public hearing, and there may be someone that comes to the public hearing that says something that says, oh, we need to think about that.
Would that be a public hearing in front of the commission?
In front of you guys.
In front of us? Yeah, I think we need to hear from more stakeholders, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Main Street probably will create a presentation. They have a lot of skin in the game and, yeah, definitely.
I think most of the regulations, I've read through them several times for different reasons. Most of them are okay. It's when it comes to temporary and where you can put them. I've known people that's stuck out a garage sale sign, but they put it in the easement.
Yeah.
And somebody came by and snatched them up instantly. So.
Yeah. My personal input on this, as I thought about it, is condition of the sign does make a difference to me.
Yes.
And its location to an R1. I mean, those things to me seem to be very common sense. The condition and the location.
So I'd recommend, as you guys think about this, and I'm gonna make a deliberate effort to reach out to you all between time, and maybe you can give me some of your thoughts, feedbacks. We'll set the public hearing and advertise that well, make sure we can get some input.
And if we get no turnout for it, then we'll say we're doing okay.
It's your guys' decision. And granted, for the public hearing, you're making a recommendation to the city commission.
So in the meantime, there's no exception for the one person that brought the concern forth, because I see no problem in what that individual wants to do.
Yes.
He's gonna have to wait it out.
So, yeah, the staff can't
Okay.
say, you know what, it's not bothering anyone, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, there's gotta be some happy medium in here. I mean, I think for the most part, the sign regs, I've read through them, I didn't remember to bring my book, but I read through them last night at home. And I'm with Scott, they look pretty good, but I think there's gotta be some tweaking so that we can assist people who need the tweaking, and plus we can satisfy the needs of, a beautiful town and with no dilapidated stuff that's been up there for 10 years and it's about to rot and fall to the grass. There's gotta be something in there we can do, whether we advise the city commission that, what about a special permit just for signage that a person could apply for, and they give them extended periods of time so they can advertise during their business, because we're only talking about businesses here. This is the only person that's really gonna be impacted by this, is trying to decide what's fair, because right now what's on the books isn't being enforced, and we got a person that might have registered a complaint, well, what about everybody else? Their sign's been out just as long.
I do like that idea, is make it for 45 days, make it for free, just say, come back in and re-sign up again.
I mean, it might be something
And
as
then you
simple
go out and
as,
take a look, when they do sign up for 45 more days, go take a look at their sign. If it's faded, rattled, broken, whatever, say, nope, not till you get a new sign.
something, you know.
Okay. Understood.
So in the meantime, do we need to maybe have a work session amongst ourselves and discuss some of this, or just as an individual come back with?
If that's your all's desire, I mean, you know, and part of that was the deliberate intention of the separation of time between when this was brought up to the city commission to today, is trying to seek input. So it may not be a bad idea. You guys think about it and then just have a work session, another brainstorming session.
Would you guys like to see the input that the feedback that they got back so far? So we can
Yeah, I'd
kind of
like
see.
to read what businesses said.
Yeah, I think I'd.
Was it businesses responding or individuals?
Individual business owners.
Okay.
If you could send that out to us, I think that would be helpful.
And I don't need to know who it was, I just want to see what they wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to hear from the business owner in the audience tonight? Does it matter?
And that's not in your guys' packet tonight. Okay, I apologize. The intent was to have that in front of you.
I mean, I think if it's the business owner with the flags, I think, you know what they'll say, they want to have them out, and I understand that, but, and I was unaware up till now of this, but if it's the detail shop over there on Sixth Street, it's a truck route. It's a,
Bingo.
you know, it's not somebody's, you know, it's not Country Club Drive.
But, you gotta think, some things, and we understand where they exist today, or where they're happening, are allowed, not allowed, or easy justifiable to say, hey, that not impacting anyone right there. But what makes it difficult is for staff to justify, that's okay, because it's not really impacting anyone, but you're so.
In other words, if
having
somebody
something-
wanted to do it where it did impact somebody.
Having something really deliberately written down that's easily defined.
Well,
So
not-
coming back to, why can't that be a special use permit thing written into the ordinance?
For that property.
That
That
thing, and
business.
if the detail shop folds in 20 years, well, then they've lost their permit.
I don't know that you as planning commissioners will have monthly meetings discussing temporary signs for.
Well, maybe there's something, that ordinance that we could write in that the city makes that justification that they can either
Yeah,
say yay or nay based upon the
commissioners
zone.
before have
or
made
something.
exceptions to things.
Yeah, but,
I don't know. It's,
as, we have a written rule today. If the desire is to deflect from that, we need to modify that.
They could change their minds.
Well, if you'll get us that feedback that you've gotten so far, I think that'll be a step towards us helping to, and then we can discuss if we want to.
If you make up a ruling, some of these business owners, and you try to make them change their sign, or change their canopy, or change something, people have back.
Yeah, but it's not going to change their canopy or their sign. It's going to be a temporary,
Attached to the building.
it's going to be a temporary sign.
If you come along and say, well, you got a hole in that sign, you gotta replace it, you're gonna hear from them. I agree, maybe they should be changed, I'll admit that, but if it's gonna cost them $4,000 or $5,000 to change that awning or whatever, you're gonna hear from them.
Well, if it needs to be changed from a hole or damage to it, they should change it, and if they don't want to, take it down, whatever. It's better than having something look trashy when a group of people come off the turnpike and come into town, and there's a torn up sign there, but it says, "We're still open." But you'd think they'd want to fix it instead of just leave a trashy sign.
I think.
Well, so am I hearing, go ahead and schedule a public hearing, or am I hearing we want to have a work session? Talk a little deeper about it.
Well, wouldn't you think we'd want to kind of hash this out amongst ourselves and then
Just a
put
little
that out
bit.
for the public to say, do you want to come and have a public hearing and talk about it after we've kind of made these observations? I mean, right now, all we're doing is, everybody just spin for yourself and spit out what you're thinking off the top of your head. We don't have any changes in mind, really. I mean,
Is that?
That makes
desire
sense to me.
group?
So would we want to do a work session in between now and the next meeting to, I mean, it shouldn't be too awful long for us to sit down and kind of gather
I
our
have
thoughts
some-
and,
I have some public notice requirements, 20 days out, so if we want to.
For a work session?
No, if you guys are going to have a hearing and that evening vote on a recommended change, we need.
I was just thinking about having a work session with just us to where we could openly just kick it around, and then we would be better prepared to handle the public coming to us other than being,
I think we need to digest some things because,
Drive around town, think about some
Yeah.
things, look at stuff, and then, we only have one item scheduled for the agenda next month, and it's a special use permit to allow a daycare facility downtown, so another daycare facility. And that's the only item we have on the agenda. That item set, we may be able to shift this work session up. But how about I just get in touch with y'all and if the preference is sometimes other than an evening, like a noon or something else to casually sit around,
yeah, we could do, yeah. Am I barking up the wrong tree or is
I'm
that,
just gonna be gone a lot in June, that's one of my only hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so,
I make a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
This lady seemed to be fairly knowledgeable about what's going on. I would highly recommend if she could recommend something to us, give us some ideas as to what, from her standpoint, would be better, would help out also.
It sounds like we don't want to rush this, right?
correct.
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's not so broken right now that it's not working. So I don't think we need to rush into it, but it sounds like that we've made comments that we find it in pretty good shape and it's been recommended that there needs to be a change. So I think we need to, I know I need to further digest what change and why change.
Right, because change could be bigger, it could be incremental. I think
Right.
This probably is gonna be incremental in my books.
Yeah, and again, I go back to the whole enforcement thing. I mean, first off, you gotta have a rule that's enforceable. Second off, you gotta have a rule that somebody is available to enforce it.
I would say
So,
the last time we changed regulations was about the scale and the size of the homes, tiny homes. We had some other things we changed. I mean, that was about a 3-4 meeting
been a while.
process.
Yeah. Took a while.
If you guys are ready, I'm kinda ready to move on to the next thing.
Okay. Next thing is, hope you had time to look at it. Our newest commissioner probably hasn't had much time to digest it. But the Dorado Main Street Downtown Master Plan, which is a project which lot of input, a lot of thoughtfulness in its crafting. Our director, of course, Emily Mel is here this evening. Lots of great ideas, lots about about business vitality downtown. How do we draw traffic? How do we make buildings usable, and that sort of thing. So a lot of good information for the city to use as a guiding document in the future and choices and plans. Really, where it involves you as a planning commissioner is that chapter 5, the existing downtown, the land use. Really, it asks us as a planning commission, as staff, as a city commission, to dive into and review the regulations. Is there anything within our regulations today that overly burdens someone from doing what they want to do? Or are there hurdles that make it a more difficult process? So to review those and look at that sort of thing, and talk about the uses downtown. There's a pretty wide array today of uses downtown that can happen, but is there something we're restricting? Some of this has to do with staff and how we work with development, and I'd like to think we collaborate pretty well on lots of very cool projects for Dorado. Mrs. Canal has anything to add to it?
Well, thanks again. This waiting tone is great for doorstops, and for those of you who prefer print, as what I do. But this is really an invitation for collaboration, and representing a very serious attempt at a lot of public input, a very heavy survey process. It's all documented in the book. It is really, there are no surprises in this book. You won't find anything in here that would be shocking about much. We all know the kinds of communities we want to live in. We want them to be safe. We want them to be beautiful. We want them to be prosperous. We want them to be a point of pride for us. We want real community, all of those things with a great future, and do the things now so that we are building a platform for the future that people worked on that we're enjoying right now. So there is a great, and I think it really is the comp plan that you all already have, that the city commissioned and worked on back in 2007 and 8 and 9 and adopted in 2010, right? The 1030 comp plan. Trouble with those often, especially about the midpoint, which is where we were in COVID in 2020, right? Is that plans are dynamic, and they really are. Things are changing all the time, and that comp plan is a 20-year plan, and it hasn't had, because of COVID and a lot of other serious priorities, it hasn't had a serious review. And when you review it and read it, you see, you guys, should be so proud of all the things that are in there that have been considered. I'm a come here. I haven't lived here, but going on, 10 years plus. It's amazing. You have these plans because a lot's embedded in them. Well, that plan was done before we had a downtown historic district. It's referred to in the plan as the downtown commercial district. And the qualities and the situation downtown has changed a lot. We have a lot of young entrepreneurs. We have a whole recommitment to the downtown from businesses and all of that kind of thing, and big movements to do a lot of second-story housing and all of that kind of stuff. So this is a review of the comp plan and an insertion to the comp plan, whatever might be useful in here for your consideration. We can't tell you to review the comp plan, for Pete's sakes, but if you have issues that are concerning the downtown, and signage is one of them, for example, you might want to refer to this. If people who are interested in investing downtown, and really want to know the context of the downtown. This is a source book for that. If you are a realtor and you're trying to learn fast a whole lot of things, if you are, I mean, there are 1,000 reasons to use this book, which is why it's Lord knows not perfect. And we put the printed copies in 3-ring notebooks so we can take out pages and throw them away and put in better ones. I mean, to reflect that it's dynamic. But the idea is that this is reviewed by you all and that we incorporate any suggestions and changes. I'm working with our city manager now with Chapter 12, which is a compilation of all the recommendations in chapters 4 through 11, to see which ones we ought to be working on together, which ones Main Street needs to work harder on, how we need to identify funding streams, how we need to not just come to the city and say, oh, you should do this, right? But we can help do these things, and there are lots of grants, and the city has been terrific at maximizing getting those grants. How many grants? How much money did you guys raise out of the base grants? Over $4 million, right? The base grant plus what? Those grants for all
About
that
$5 million
infrastructure?
today, yeah.
Pardon?
About $5 million.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that takes care of a big problem that we have downtown, which is, we hope, which is water in our streets and water in our basements and flooding of our streets. And I mean, anyway, that's what this is, and we hope that it will be helpful to you all as a tool, as the authorities in terms of really guiding how this community is moving.
So the next meeting, what we'll ask you all to do is formally recommend acceptance of this plan. And then the city commission recommend acceptance of it as well, and be another guiding document of vision, something that we can reference. That helps the governing body, you all as a planning commission, make decisions based on plans, public input, because really what you all are appointed to do and the city commission's elected to do is to seek what's in the public's best interest on that. Yes, sir.
How many surveys were actually done?
99.
I only read 99. Yeah.
99.
And there was like 100 and some that were sent out or something like that?
Yeah, that's right.
And that was just to business owners
Business
in the
owners.
downtown district?
Business owners and property owners primarily.
Okay, so not really the general public of El
No.
Dorado had any
No.
say in any of
No,
this at all?
No, this is all our Main Street in the downtown district this is all place-based with the people who are investing in the downtown, about the downtown, with all the statutes that are relevant to preservation, but also commerce and all kinds of other things in terms of the heart of the community, transportation, parking, all of those things. But it's the people who have an absolute invested interest in this, and they know what their publics need and want, was our idea, that this is not about a big public planning session. You did that with the comp plan, right? Huge input. We wanted 100 at least. I mean, I was really, and it was like, no, come on, we've got 99. And it took one volunteer 40 plus hours to just compile that survey. It's an extensive survey. And that's one of the reasons is because we're not survey writers. We are a steering committee, and we asked the questions we thought we needed to know the answers to. We weren't trying to do a survey that was efficient, that you could quickly check off a few things and then do a graph and say, see, we have all this public input. We really wanted it, and we put in all the comments and all of that sort of stuff. But Jackie Clark, I don't know if you know Jackie, she's one of the most efficient, amazing volunteers in the world, and she's the one that compiled all of this. I mean,
It was awesome to read. I spent the last week reading all 300 and some pages of this thing. It was,
thank
fantastic.
you so much.
My concern was that it didn't really relate to the general population now, not just
No.
related to more the business, the downtown business, the
And
investors, the people who own businesses in the downtown
That's right.
area and what they're wanting
What-
for their downtown, so.
I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this, Scott, or not, but as a business owner downtown, don't you feel like you have a good sense of your customers and what would make things better and what would, I mean, you're an investor and a dedicated person to downtown and its development, and you get aggravated about certain things, and you're enthusiastic about some other things, but the main thing is, as a business owner, you show up and you want your ideas put in the pot because you have invested. Other people may come and go. But this was the idea of this, that we wanted strong stakeholder representation. The taxpayers, the people that are trying to make it work and are making it work. We've got a great downtown, and we all know what the sales tax have been doing in the last 5 years. And we have a lot more work to do in terms of our database, in terms of actual economic impact, and if you know anybody who wants to help us configure economic impact specifically for the downtown in terms of the overall economic picture of the town, we would welcome that help. And we have a renewed and very rigorous state Main Street program that is very interested in helping us increase our capacity to serve. So come on down to the office.
I moved here from Joplin, Missouri, and
Oh.
we recently did this entire thing to our downtown there in the last like 10 or 15 years, and it's just been amazing. So that's why I was really interested in seeing what you came up with.
Well, I would be very interested in knowing what you came up with. We would. Please come on and we need some help on our design committee and on other things. Please do. I mean, look at you. You've got the comprehensive plan in front of you. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you. So our next item is the election of a chairman. Our previous chairman resigned, and it was just due to nothing more than in needing shift in direction and things piling up on him, and wanted to step away for a while. So if you all want to deliberate about that. Chairman runs a meeting just like Vice Chair Hughes did this evening. Calls the meeting to order, calls the opening, closing public hearings, calls for roll calls. Public hearings get out of hand, has to, step away, or you've hit a time limit, or please bring relative information to the floor. I'm sure you've been part of those deliberations where nothing new is really coming to light.
I thought our vice chair did a great job. I know he's a good student, works hard. I would ask the other commissioners to consider Commissioner Frank Hughes.
Do you want the job?
Well,
There's an important question.
I've been giving it very deep, prayerful consideration, and yeah, I would be interested in leading the group, I should say. I will not be, I am not a dictator. I am not someone who's going to stand up and beat my chest and tell you how you think. So I will be looking for guidance from each and every one of us, because it's a team, and we need every one of our pieces of expertise. Just like Commissioner Letts has been through a downtown renovation type program, and that'd be very good to have insight to what we have. So, I mean, I think we all bring something to the table that we all need each other. So, but yes, I would entertain being, and I don't think anybody's going to get me in a headlock and say, no, I want to do it. So, but.
Do we just need a motion on it?
Yeah, do we want someone that wants to replace him as vice in case he's not able to attend the meeting and run it? get that in place.
I think in light that, we're talking a lot about downtown, all that, we're talking about business. I think Commissioner Hackler would be really good because of what he presently does.
It would give us a set of eyes of,
I mean, it's the body's will. I mean, I'm up to volunteer if that's what it is. I'm probably gonna be here anyway, so it's just a title. Unless Frank doesn't show up, and then I know where he lives.
but I got a lot of places to hide.
So, yeah, you guys self-appoint, so a motion to make that happen. You just need to hear it.
I don't think you or me can do it.
I would make a motion for Commissioner Frank Hughes to be the new chair, and I would make, in that same motion, that Commissioner Scott Hackler be the vice chair.
I'll second that.
Everyone in agreement, yay?
Okay.
Yes.
Any disagree? So it be. Our next meeting, I brought up that we do have a special use permit for a daycare facility. It is located in the building, in the 100 block of North Main on the east side, the one that's currently being remodeled. Pregnancy Family Resource Branch is building there. I had an engagement planned prior to even Mr. Shivers leaving for that evening. That was a commission meeting. So we will have other staff there. And then hearing the sign discussion tonight, I think maybe if that could hold off to when I could attend would be best.
Sounds good.
At a work session. Just know that we're meeting with the applicant on the special use permit, trying to get as much information as we can. So, should we just schedule a work session now, or do we want to wait till July?
Do you think that special use meeting will be next month? Okay. That's a short and sweet deal, probably.
I mean, there's going to be things to think about. There's going to be concerns of drop off, pick up. So things like that, we're trying to get answers from the applicant right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy area to
Yeah.
be doing a drop off and pick up.
But as far as the safety of the building and how we remodel and everything, that'll be all addressed by the building code, building official.
All right, well,
What do you think of table the work session until July?
How about I reach out to you individually and then get a grasp of.
I mean,
all-
July would work for me. I mean, it's,
I think we have an anxious, business owner, but I think it is, and I may talk to the city manager, maybe there's a way the commission can vote a moratorium for a period of time to give you guys enough time, moratorium. If that's the desire of theirs. But, yeah. Sounds good.
all
I
right.
appreciate you guys' all your discussion input this evening. It was great. I know it went long, and I appreciate you guys willing to volunteer your time for this.
Well, I think that concludes our business. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. Anybody, everybody in favor say aye? Aye. If you're opposed, you can turn off the lights.